Hello and welcome to Weekly News Highlights. I'm Kim Dami in Seoul. Let's begin with keywords that made headlines this week. The official campaigning for the June 3rd presidential election began this Monday, with 3 main runners out of the 7 registered candidates launching campaign trails across the country. South Korean economy will only expand by 0.8% this year, a state-run think tank believes, which sparked fresh fears and worries of a recession as the country battles with challenges both at home and abroad. South Korea this week hosted a trade ministers meeting of the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation APEC down on Jeju Island. Tariffs and economic cooperation topped the agenda, along with the rise of digital tools like AI. Starting Monday, 7 candidates have gone all out for the next 22 days to convince voters that they are the best choice to serve as the 21st president of South Korea. We start with the Democratic Party candidate Lee Jae-myung. Our correspondent Sejong followed this campaign trail.
The Democratic Party's Lee Jae-myung, who began rallying support in his party's strongholds on Thursday, continued his campaign in them on Friday, this time in Jeollabuk-do province. Lee's campaign trail took him through the cities of Iksan, Gunsan, Jeonju, and Cheonguk. During his visit to Iksan, he emphasized balanced regional growth, noting that Jeollabuk-do has been especially overlooked.
If the current concentration in the capital region continues, the country won't be able to grow sustainably. Balanced regional growth isn't just about helping local regions, it's a necessary strategy for South Korea's future.
He also addressed the overconcentration of universities in the capital and the need to strengthen universities in other regions. He said he would increase support for national universities outside of Seoul and promised to improve conditions for young people through better education, cultural opportunities, and jobs so they don't feel the need to leave their provinces. During his visit to Jeonju, where he was met with traditional Korean music and gugang musicians, he said the culture industry was a key strategic sector. He added that the government should consider guaranteeing a minimum living wage for artists and cultural workers. In a social media post, he also announced new policies for women, including tougher penalties for dating violence and digital sex crimes, and plans to close the gender pay gap. Meanwhile, lawmaker Kim Sang-wook, who was in favor of former President Yoon Suk-yeol's impeachment and recently broke away from the People Power Party, showed up at Lee's campaign to support him. Kim described Lee as both a true conservative and a true progressive, saying that those who divide politics into sides shouldn't be involved in politics. 신하영, Arirang News.
And the Conservative People Power Party's Moon-soo also traveled across the nation wooing voters. Our Kim Do-yeon has the details.
After a relatively quiet day on Thursday, Moon-soo of the People Power Party went into full rally mode on Friday. He started in Gyeonggi-do province where significantly he was governor for 2 terms and touted his starting of the GTX high-speed underground train system in the greater capital region. In fact, when he visited Dongtan in Hwasong City, he pledged to improve transportation even more, this time for owners of cars.
When you build a new city, because initially there are no jobs, everyone goes to Seoul for work. There is no way to get there. The Gyeongbu Expressway actually becomes the Gyeongbu parking lot.
He pledged to construct 6 new beltways around the capital region. On top of this, Kim vowed to expand the GTX line, saying those currently being constructed will have additional stops added. His campaign promised to build similar models around the country for major metropolitan areas. In the afternoon, he held rallies in Chungcheongdo region and one major stop was Sejong City. He pledged to finish the process of making Sejong the nation's administrative capital by sending the National Assembly's major committees alongside having a second office for the president there. While these pledges have been made by other candidates, Kim added that the country's top 5 major commissions, including the Korea Communication Commission and Korea Fair Trade Commission, will be moved to Sejong to ensure administrative work can be done there. In addition, he promised to make Sejong more reachable with his specialty express train lines.
However, since the current railway infrastructure is insufficient for civilian access, there's a need to further develop the network, such as the CTX. I mentioned earlier.
In total, Kim went to 7 cities on Friday to hold rallies and make developmental pledges, all in Gyeonggi-do and Chungcheong-do provinces, typically considered battleground regions. On Saturday, he will campaign in the southwest, Jeollado provinces, the stronghold of the rival Democratic Party. 김도현, Arirang News.
As the country gears up for a pivotal presidential election, one particular theme is consistent across all major campaigns: the economy. Candidates are packing their pledges with economic and business-related policies, with different approaches to similar issues. For more, we are joined in the studio by our economics correspondent, Moon Hae-ryun. Welcome back, Hae-ryun.
It's good to be here.
So, Hae-ryun, what are the candidates promising, and why is the economic agenda taking such a significant portion of the pledges?
So in South Korea, presidential candidates are required to submit a formal document to the National Election Commission that details their key policy proposals. Looking at the 2 major candidates this year, Jae-myung and Moon-soo, a significant portion of their pledges focus on economic issues. In the case of Jae-myung, the Democratic Party candidate, half of his pledges have been classified under economic policies. For Moon-soo, the People Power Party candidate, this comes to a total of 7 out of 10.
It's true that Korea is now in a slump with very low growth, among the worst globally, right? I will bring this economy back to life as a president of the economy. Everyone.
To overcome the trade crisis stemming from the U.S. and the fierce AI race, and to avoid getting crushed between global superpowers, the entire nation must unite and pool its strengths.
The prominence of economic pledges in their campaigns reflects how the country is grappling with slowing economic growth and global uncertainty stemming from U.S. trade policies. Recent data has shown that economic growth shrank in the first quarter of the year, and economic institutions at home and abroad are revising down their economic projections. As a result, both candidates are presenting themselves as the best equipped to tackle these issues.
So, Hae-ryun, out of the many economic pledges that you've just pointed out for us, are there any special topics that particularly stand out from the candidates?
Yes, Tammy, and that's particularly evident in the way that the candidates have structured their pledges for submission. Here's what an expert said.
Where a candidate places an issue, whether it ranks first or 10th, tells us a great deal about what they're really focused on.
So when artificial intelligence shows up as Jae-myung's #1 pledge and as Moon-soo's second, it sends a clear message that both candidates consider this to be central to South Korea's economic future. Both are pledging a huge sum of 100 trillion Korean won, approximately $71 billion in investments for AI, signaling the scale of their ambition for the sector. Another overlap in their AI-related pledges is that they both agree that the current regulatory framework in the country is lagging behind other countries. Lee wants to use special exemptions to help AI-convergent industries grow more quickly. Kim, on the other hand, talks about aligning AI regulation with global standards and conducting impact assessments before new rules are introduced. It's a recognition that if Korea wants to compete with the likes of the US or China, it can't afford red tape that slows down innovation.
Well, in that case, what are some other differences in their AI strategies?
So Jae-myung emphasizes public access. His AI for All initiative would offer citizens free advanced AI services, including a Korean-made version of ChatGPT. He also pledges to secure over 50,000 high-performance GPUs and establish a national AI data cluster. Meanwhile, Moon-soo proposes a public-private fund to foster AI unicorn firms and expand industry talent. And he has very specific targets for talent. He plans to train 200,000 young AI professionals through expanded graduate programs and software-centered universities. And worth mentioning here, although less prominent in the polls, is Lee Jun-suk, the former People Power Party leader, now running as a third-party candidate. His AI vision calls for a dramatic reduction in state intervention and wants market-driven AI innovation, with stronger digital sovereignty and open-source infrastructure at the core.
And as we all know, AI has become something that's very more prominent, especially now these days. And I'm wondering if the candidates are also pressing other significant issue, let's say trade.
That's right. So trade is a particularly pressing issue now because tariff exemptions from the United States expired just a month after the elections. Kim Moon-soo's top pledge centers around trade as he proposes a reset of Korea's trade strategy, starting with an immediate South Korea-US summit and new negotiations on tariffs. Lee Jae-myung is more focused on domestic resilience. So while he acknowledges the need to adapt to the global economic order, he doesn't emphasize alliances or trade pacts in the same way. Instead, he prioritizes homegrown innovation and economic self-reliance, in line with his vision of building a more robust domestic economy that's less vulnerable to external shocks. Lee Jun-suk again takes a different line. So he supports a decentralized, tech-led foreign trade approach, advocating for the use of blockchain in customs, logistics, and trade settlement to reduce dependence on geopolitical dynamics.
All right, Hae-ryung, thank you so much for coming in today.
Thank you for having me.
A local think tank cut its growth forecast for the local economy to 0.8%, the first time the rate has landed in the 0% range. Our Moon-soo has this report.
The Korea Development Institute gave a grim economic outlook for South Korea on Wednesday, citing trade uncertainty stemming from tariff and weak domestic demand. Data from the KDI showed it expects the Korean economy to grow just 0.8% this year. That figure is exactly half its 1.6% forecast made only 3 months ago in February. The KDI added that of the 0.8% downward adjustment, external shocks contributed about 0.5 percentage points, and internal shocks contributed 0.3 percentage points.
The biggest factor for this adjustment is the U.S. tariff increase. The U.S. tariff hikes became full-fledged from April. And on top of that, the uncertainty regarding tariff policy has also significantly increased. These factors are having a negative impact on our exports. And we believe this is also partially spilling over negatively into domestic demand.
While the forecast was based on the assumptions that the 90-day suspension of reciprocal tariff would continue, the growth outlook could be adjusted further downward if upcoming negotiations fall through or the suspension ends. The think tank said that despite robust trip shipments, overall exports are slowing and conditions may further weaken if the U.S. raises tariffs. Internally, domestic demand is recovering only slowly due to contracted consumer sentiment, driven by political turmoil as well as the mounting external uncertainties. Private consumption is slowing, especially in the services industry, including accommodation and restaurants. The think tank forecasts that consumer prices will rise by 1.7% this year due to the economic slowdown and falling international oil prices. Other key factors include the sluggish construction industry and weak corporate investment sentiment. The KDI highlighted the need to ease monetary policy to respond to a potential economic slowdown caused by growing uncertainties at home and abroad. Moon-soo, Arirang News.
A trade ministers meeting of the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation APEC took place on South Korea's Jeju Island this week. APEC member states, including South Korea, used the time to resume tariff talks with the U.S. Our Peun-ji was there.
South Korea's Trade Minister An Dok-gun and U.S. Trade Representative Jamison Greer met on Jeju Island on Friday and agreed to hold technical talks on tariffs next week in Washington, D.C. The meeting, held on the sidelines of the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Trade Ministers meeting hosted by South Korea, comes as both countries have been working to produce a package of deals aimed at removing new U.S. tariffs before the July 8th deadline, when the 90-day pause on reciprocal tariffs is lifted.
We have 50 days until the negotiation due date set by the U.S. government. Under the acting president, the South Korean government has been making efforts through intergovernmental cooperation. and gathering opinions from industry stakeholders.
An explained that next week's talks will be focused on 6 key areas: balanced trade, non-tariff measures, economic security, digital trade, country of origin, and commercial considerations. Friday's talks follows the 2 officials meeting 3 weeks ago in Washington, where South Korea requested exemptions from reciprocal tariffs while offering cooperation on shipbuilding and energy. In fact, prior to his meeting with An, Greer met with the CEOs of South Korea's leading shipbuilding companies, HD Hyundai and Hanwha Ocean, to discuss cooperation. South Korea, which faces 25% U.S. reciprocal tariffs, hopes to leverage its shipbuilding capabilities in upcoming tariff negotiations, after the Trump administration reportedly showed great interest in this field, as it seeks to revive the American shipbuilding industry. As Seoul works to tackle trade uncertainties from Trump's tariffs, eyes are now on whether South Korea and the U.S. will be able to make further progress during their talks next week. 배은진, Arirang News, Jeju.
In a major breakthrough, the U.S. and China on Monday announced a significant rollback on their tariffs, lowering them by 115 percentage points for 90 days. Our An Sang-jin has the details.
After months of what seemed like a trade war, the United States and China have decided on tariff cuts.
We have reached an agreement on a 90-day pause and substantially moved down the tariff levels. Both sides on the reciprocal tariffs will move their tariffs down 115%.
The announcement comes following trade negotiations in Geneva over the weekend. In a joint statement, both emphasized the importance of a sustainable, long-term, and mutually beneficial economic and trade relationship.
China has always pursued win-win outcomes in its trade and economic negotiations, and therefore, any deal to be reached must surely be in China's own development interests.
The Trump administration will be lowering its tariffs on Chinese goods from 145% to 30%, while Beijing will slash its taxes on U.S. imports from 125% to 10%. The tariff revisions are set to be imposed before May 14th. The tariff cuts, which come as a surprise breakthrough, may de-escalate tightened trade tensions and pessimistic global market outlooks. An Sang-jin, Arirang News.
And U.S. President Donald Trump embarked on his first overseas diplomatic trip since his return to the Oval Office this week. During his first stop, Saudi Arabia, he announced a removal of all U.S. sanctions on Syria. Our Park Kwon-woo has more.
The more than a decade-long U.S. sanctions on Syria to pressure the country's former dictatorship are set to be lifted. That was announced by U.S. President Donald Trump in a speech made at an investment forum held in Riyadh during his 4-day visit to the Gulf, Trump's first international trip since his return to the Oval Office.
I will be ordering the cessation of sanctions against Syria in order to give them a chance at greatness.
Trump said he made the move at the request of Saudi Arabia's Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, while saying U.S. measures against Syria had now fulfilled their purpose. Syria had been urging the U.S. to lift sanctions since last December, following the ousting of its former dictator. Syria's Foreign Minister Assad al-Shaibani called Trump's decision a pivotal turning point, as Syria enters a phase of reconstruction after years of war. Trump is expected to meet with Syria's interim leader Ahmed al-Shara on Wednesday, while U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio will hold talks with Syria's foreign minister in Turkey later this week. On Tuesday, Trump called Iran the most destructive force in the Middle East, vowing it would never be allowed to have nuclear weapons. Trump also said he remains open to diplomacy with Tehran, saying he is not just condemning Iran's previous choices.
I want to make a deal with Iran, but if Iran's leadership rejects this olive branch and continues to attack their neighbors, then we will have no choice but to inflict massive maximum pressure, drive Iranian oil exports to zero like I did before.
Also on Tuesday at the U.S.-Saudi Investment Forum, Saudi Arabia announced an investment of $600 billion in the United States. The agreement includes an arms deal worth nearly $142 billion, which the White House called the largest defense cooperation deal Washington has ever done, as well as other technology partnerships. Park Kwon-woo, Arirang News.
Korean conductor Jae-myung will take the podium of the renowned Italian opera house La Scala next year to become its first Asian musical director in its history. On Monday, Italy's world-renowned opera house, Teatro alla Scala, announced that 72-year-old Korean conductor Jae-myung was unanimously chosen for the role by the opera house's board of directors in a meeting on the same day. Inaugurated in 1778, this is the first time in La Scala's 247-year history that an Asian person will hold the position. Now, Chung will also be just the second non-Italian to take up the role. Jung's musical journey began as a pianist, but he stepped onto the conductor's podium in 1978 when he was named associate conductor of the LA Philharmonic. Jung's ties to La Scala also run deep. Since 1989, Jung has led 9 opera productions across 84 performances and conducted 141 concerts at La Scala, which is more than any other conductor who did not hold the title of a music director. Now, Jung will succeed Ricardo Schai with his official term beginning late next year and running through early 2030. This Thursday, May 15th, marked Teachers' Day here in South Korea. And at one special school, students with a North Korean background, whose guardians went to great lengths to offer them a life, are sharing their own gratitude. Our Kim Jong-sil has the story.
At first glance, it looks like any other Teachers' Day celebration in South Korea. Students handing over carnations, writing thank you notes, and singing songs for their teachers. But at this school, those small gestures carry a different weight. Hangyeole Middle and High in Gyeonggi-do Province is the only school in South Korea dedicated to students from North Korean backgrounds, whether they arrived themselves or were born to defectors, sometimes even in third countries along the way. Here at Hangyeole School, where all the students come from North Korean backgrounds, Teachers' Day may seem like any other, but it also reflects how they're adjusting to life here in the South.
It wouldn't be fun if they knew, so we planned it all in secret. That made it way better.
These teachers honestly feel like lifesavers to me. I don't usually get to thank them, so this was my chance.
It's more than a surprise event. It's a milestone in their journey of adapting to a new culture and life.
I hope this stays with them as a good memory. And maybe one day they'll pass it on to their own students.
With 115 students enrolled, 31 in the middle school, Hangyeole offers more than academics. Teachers here often step in as mentors and guardians, helping students bridge 2 very different worlds.
We follow the national curriculum, but also help students adjust, socially, emotionally, and for the future. Some still speak with a North Korean accent, but they're finding their place here with confidence.
Named after the word for one people, Hangyeole is more than just a school. It's a place where students with North Korean backgrounds begin to shape new lives. For them, this is one of many moments helping to build that life in the South. Kim Jong-sil, Arirang News.
So here in South Korea, May 15th is widely known as a National Teachers' Day. Now, starting this year, it will also be celebrated together with the birthday of King Sejong the Great, who contributed to the root of Korean culture, including the alphabet Hangul. Our Choi Soo-hyung tells us more.
People press a seal engraved with Korean letters, Hangul. They also try printing Hangul, made up of consonants and vowels, by themselves. This is Hunmin-jeongum, the original Hangul created in 1443.
We just came to look around, and then we just witnessed it, and we started to do Hangul, and it was really nice. Actually, it was so fun to do.
I think if you once try it out, you can learn it easy.
So she learned Korean for 3 months now. So and Hangul was really easy.
Yeah, and it was easy for me. At least it was easy.
Born on May 15, 1397, King Sejong the Great is regarded as one of the greatest monarchs in Korean history. He made important contributions to Korean culture, including in science, the arts, and agriculture. Among his contributions is Hangul, the Korean letters. May 15th is National Teachers' Day. Last year, the government also designated as a day to celebrate the anniversary of the birth of King Sejong, the teacher of the Korean nation, and honor his achievements. The first official celebration of the newly designated day was held at Gyeongbokgung Palace on Thursday. Many events were held to revive the significance of Hangul's creation and his legacy. Modern Hangul, made up of 24 letters, is easy to learn and has a unique design. As Korean culture spreads around the world, more people are interested in learning it.
Thanks to the global popularity of K-content, Hangul is gaining attention worldwide. Its simple shapes and small number of characters make it easy to learn, so many people want to study it. But Hangul is more than just a writing system. Its unique design is also admired globally as a form of visual art.
More than 6 centuries since his birth, King Sejong's legacy spreads across the world through Hangul. Jae-myung, Arirang News.
Thank you so much for staying with us. Enjoy your weekend wherever you are.